Well, good morning and welcome back to another week on the allotment. A couple of parish notices to start with. We took delivery yesterday of another freezer, which has brought great relief to the Jordan household. The allotment is so successful this year that our supply of vegetables, fruit and vegetables, far exceeds what we can eat fresh, and that includes the huge quantities I'm taking down the farm shop. So another freezer is a most welcome addition, and we've got 3 freezers in the garage now, and Cheryl will be busy freezing stuff today that we've collected at home in the last couple of days and starting to fill it. I've got a feeling it's going to be full within a week. Anyway, so yeah, another freezer. That was a big plus, because then, you know, it means through the winter, and we freeze everything usually within within a couple of hours of picking it, so it's really fresh. So that's great news. The second thing is Melvin, who our 2 plots back onto each other. He approached me this week and said, I'm thinking of giving up my little bit at the end. We both got those extra bits at the same time, and he's finding it all too much. Would I be interested? Well, what do you think? So yeah, I've said I am interested. It's going to be months away yet, because he's got trees, fruit trees that he grafted down there, and he wants to move those before he gives that little bit up. And it may be that I don't get it till next February when we pay for the plots, but it's something to think about in the future, and I'll show you the bit in a second when I do a plot tour. So that's another thing, always having, you know, irons in the fire. So on the plot today, interestingly, I woke up at 2 minutes to 4. My alarm was set for 4. At 2 minutes to, I woke up, looked at the time, switched it off, got out of bed. There's just something built in, isn't there? Certainly within me, but within a lot of people, that they just know when to get up. Interestingly, the North American Indians, when they needed to get up early, what they used to do was the night before they needed to get up for a dawn raid or to go hunting, they would drink a lot of water, and then in the middle of the night it would force them to get up to go to the toilet, and they'd be up and ready. Already started with the interesting information, or not. So I've got a few projects on the go now. The first, excuse me, I got 4 of these trays. They're built specifically to store apples, and one of my customers gave me 4 of these, but she said I used to have the frame that they slid into, but I don't have that anymore, but you're welcome to those. I've had those for a few years now, and what I'm thinking of doing is creating a rack, putting some wooden supports on them, and keeping it in this shed. The trouble with keeping them in the garage at home, which is where we usually keep them, is the dryer's in there, and through the winter Cheryl has that on, so it creates a damp heat in the garage, which isn't conducive with storing onions and other crops. So I think this shed here, we'll give it a go. I mean, it won't get many onions on it, but it'll make a difference, I'm sure. So I'm gonna make a rack for that. Another project is I've been growing this asparagus from seed. It was a free packet that came with one of the magazines I get, and it's looking good. I've emptied one of the beds, the long thin beds, and I'll show you later. And I figure I'll make some trenches and plant that up. I think the asparagus is going to have to be ridged, not just because that's sort of traditionally the way it's done, but more importantly for my plot, in the winter, you know, my plot gets very wet. It doesn't flood anymore because of the Hanley canal, but it certainly gets wet, and I wouldn't want them to sit with their feet, you know, in a soggy mess and die through the winter. Anyway, we'll see. So more of that later. The other thing I've got to do is down the bottom end, and again I'll show you in a second, it's all a bit weedy down there, and those onions are most certainly ready to come out. A few of them have bolted, and Cheryl wants some onions to take home today, so I'll take the bolted ones and she can use those straight away. So that bed's got to be cleared and sorted out, and the onions dried and stored. So yeah, lots going on at the moment. But I have to say, I am very happy with the way the plot is looking. We haven't been quite as active with the caravan this year. So it has given me a little more time. You know, these long Sundays are making a difference to how I keep on top of the plot. So it's all very good at the moment, and we'll show you around in a moment. Welcome along. Well, I'm starting, unusually, from Melvin's plot, and this is the strip of ground here, the corner of which is that apple tree, all the way across here to this rough abandoned patch, which adjoins or butts onto my plot, which you can see starts there. And this bit here is the bit he wants to give up. So it's not a huge amount, but it doubles this bit I've got here. So from the back of the compost heaps, it would double the piece I've got here. So I've said I'm interested, and we shall see. But moving on to my plot as it is at the moment, these comfrey plants have all taken. I've been watering them when I moved them, and you can see they're picking up. This is the bed of onions that needs to be sorted today, top priority. And you can see that a number of them have got some very attractive seed heads on, and they're the ones that Cheryl will get to use first. These ones have collapsed, none of them have bolted, so there's a cracking crop there. Some of the Red Baron have bolted, but so be it. Parsnips are looking good. We've had quite a bit of rain recently, so there's been no watering and everything's looking wonderful. Moving through, oh, I must just show you this raspberry. How long have I had an allotment? This blackberry. You know, what a size these things are. And just as a decorative plant, I find it beautiful. And we're cropping those, and of course, because they're so big, we're picking punnets of them. So I think we're going to offer some of them to my mum. We're going down to see my mum and dad next weekend. I think Cheryl's going to offer them some of them. She'll have to now because I've said it on the video. Anyway, to the plot main. As you can see, the tomatoes are doing wonderfully, and they're just starting to redden up now. Cheryl doesn't like sunflowers, but I do, and I've grown some, and they are looking fantastic. And yeah, I just find them a pleasure. These French beans have been cropping like mad. They're a real success. I'm starting to get more pumpkins. There's a couple down there, you can see them. Yeah, the pumpkins are really starting slowly to crank up, and they're starting to fruit. This is the only bed of leeks I've got now, and you can just see the start of rust appearing on them. The weather at the moment is warm, damp, humid and wet, which is perfect for blight. But there you go. The peas are done. We have picked the last of our peas, and as you can see, these are now going over, and I will leave them here for a month or two and then harvest some of the seed and hopefully grow my own alderman pea from seed next year, which will be nice. Another bed of white and red onions over there, which are starting to collapse. So a lot more onions to harvest. Don't know where I'm going to keep them all. Right, this is the butternut mashed potato. And you know, I won't take you inside the plants, but they are now starting to create small fruit, which I'm thrilled about. The runner beans, we've picked the first of our runner beans. These are a variety called St. George, and we've eaten some this week, and they are superb. I can thoroughly recommend them. My second sowing of cauliflower and broccoli are coming on. This was the first bed of pumpkins that I sowed, and I've got a couple of whoppers that are already turning orange. Here's the Tromboncini arch, and it's doing exactly what I wanted. I've got a couple now that are starting to hang down, and you know, it just says so much about my sense of humour, but I love it. Still haven't eaten one. Now, big job this week. This bed used to be full of the raspberries that Bridget gave me. They really didn't come to much. It wasn't a success. So this week I dug out all those raspberries, and it was a mass of weeds, and I've put in some autumn cropping raspberries that I acquired from a piece of untended land, and they're looking good. Whether they crop this year because I've transplanted them remains to be seen, but that's all a lot neater now, and I will not let the weeds get away from me this time. I've resown some more beetroot. I don't know whether that was a wise idea. Every time I take beetroot home, Cheryl groans, because it is a lot of work, and she's an absolute trooper. This is the bed I'm going to put the asparagus in. More of that later. And then up this end, that's the beetroot we're picking at the moment. Taking lots of that to the farm shop because I've got so much of it. The black currant is now gone over. That's been fantastic this year. I've got cucumbers just beyond the scarecrow. You can see it's now as tall as the man, and I'm picking lots of cucumbers now. They're fantastic. That's a cucumber called Suprina. Grows outdoors, and it's really tasty. A bed of extra Market More cucumbers and a couple of mashed potato butternut plants there. The strawberries are finished. The blueberries are not finished. We're still picking them. There is a blackbird that knows now how to get under that netting and in, so I think he's getting his fair share, but I'm not going to lose any sleep. This is where I kept those raspberry plants until I've moved them, and then there's the courgettes, and the courgettes again there's some whoppers on there again. It's amazing how just 24 hours turns a pencil thin courgette into a monster. You've just got to blink. But anyway, there's the spinach. It's perpetual spinach, and some New Zealand spinach that's growing up through it. So I shall be taking some more of that home today and putting it in the NutriBullet, whizzing it into a liquid, and then freezing it in the new freezer. And then one last thing to mention, this pallet fence has been a success this year. Last year, even with the pallets, the grass was growing through it so thick that I couldn't walk down this lane. This year I can. However, in my constant campaign to improve things, you can see, obviously, being pallets, there are gaps between the wooden slats, and that's where the nettles and the grass are coming through. So I'm busy collecting pallet slats, and over time, and it's an ongoing project that will take me the winter, I suspect, I'm going to fill in those gaps with those battens of wood, so that next year I won't get this rather messy affair. And I know it's a bit OCD, but you know, why not? I've got the time, I've got the resources. Improve things. That's a wild raspberry growing through there. In fact, no, that's not a raspberry, it's a blackberry. It doesn't produce any fruit, but it grows up through those old roof tiles every year, so I need to do something about that. So, and we are picking, I won't take you up there now, but we are picking carrots, lots of them, so they're a success out of those tubs. Yeah, I'm very happy. It's the 1st of August today, pinch and a punch, 1st of the month, and as we stand here right now, I'm absolutely thrilled with how everything's going. Couldn't be happier. Right, to work. So, as I said, this is where I'm going to put the asparagus, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to dig 2 trenches and then backfill it with compost that I've made on the site. And this is where the compost is coming from. This was right up to the top, and it's been rotting down now for months. In fact, it says on the label, it was covered over with black plastic on the 4th of April. And I've uncovered it half an hour ago, and I've dug down into it, and it's lovely stuff. So that's what I'm going to fill my 2 asparagus trenches with. Well, yeah, it's the 1st of August today, and interestingly, sunrise now isn't till about 5:30. So when I get up here, well, I got up here just after 4:30. It's dark for quite a while, so already, you know, we're on the drop down towards autumn, which is a little bit depressing. But you know, on an allotment, you should already now, I mean, all the summer crops are planted, they're cropping, they're growing wonderfully. So already, you know, mindset, you should be shifting towards, you know, if you're growing something in the winter, I'm thinking, well, I'm not thinking about it, I'm going to grow some green manures. So, you know, as beds become empty, and I have emptied a couple, albeit small ones, and I'm going to do one today, then you should be then looking towards having the green manures ready, which I haven't. So yeah, but there's a shift as we move into August. You know, there's a shift on the allotment to thinking about the autumn and winter. But a little bit of niff-naff. I mentioned about a month or so ago that I'd watched a wonderful interview where Michael Parkinson interviewed Michael Caine. Michael Caine has to be one of the easiest men to interview in showbiz. He is just an absolute mind of wonderful stories, because of course, you know, he was around in Hollywood and the film industry back when it really was in its heyday. And anyway, which reminds me of a little tale he told. When he first moved from London over to America, to Hollywood, to try and, you know, make his fortune, which clearly was a success, he had to stay for a couple of weeks before he started filming in the Hollywood Hilton Hotel, I think it was. And he didn't know anybody, you know, he was a London boy, and he spent a couple of weeks in this hotel on his own. And he said he used to go and sit in the lobby and just see what film stars turned up. And one day John Wayne turned up, and he'd already, you know, Michael Caine had already made a couple of films, and John Wayne got talking to him, and John Wayne, and I won't attempt to do the accent, but John Wayne, who obviously was the biggest star of his day, he met Michael Caine and he spoke to him, and he said, "Let me give you a couple of bits of advice, son." He said, "Talk low, talk slow, and never wear suede shoes." And Michael Caine said, "Okay, talk low, talk slow, I get that, but the suede shoes?" And he said, "Well, you're going to be famous, you're going to be a star one day, I know it, and let me tell you, one day you'll find yourself stood at a urinal, and there'll be a fella next to you, and he'll hardly look across and go, 'Oh, it's Michael Caine.' And he will definitely pee on your shoes. Don't wear suede shoes." I thought that was wonderful, and just another example of the wonderful stories Michael Caine could tell. Yeah, don't wear suede shoes. So, step 1, dig a trench. Step 2, backfill the trench with beautifully well-rotted allotment compost. Step 3, backfill the topsoil over the top, mounding it up. Step 4, repeat on the other side. Okay, 2 asparagus raised beds, underdug with allotment compost in heavy summer rain. Is it me that's mad, or is it everybody else? You know, they do say that if everyone's running down the hill and jumping off a cliff and one man is going the other way, he's the one who looks mad, and yet he's actually the only sane one. Not convinced. So now the good bit. Let's put the asparagus in. Well, 7:25 and about an hour and a half work later, but I've now got a brand new asparagus bed. All I've got to do now is wait about 2 to 3 years to harvest it. Happy days. Well, amidst all the buzzing bees, there's a lovely looking cucumber. And I think it's worth noting that you can see there's a few marks on the skin. I don't understand what's made them. I'm guessing something living has had a little nibble on the skin, but that's the thing about allotments. You know, we don't use any chemicals up here, so everything grows naturally, and of course because it's growing naturally, things want to eat it. So that's not perfect, and you won't find something like that in a Tesco's supermarket, but it's perfectly good. It's far, far healthier. You just have to alter your expectations, but that'll be beautiful. Well, I have to declare, after reading this article, to being a little bit naive. We've done a lot of research into food and health, and we've discovered that so many of the socially accepted norms are outright lies or distortions of the truth. And you know, the food industry has got a lot to answer for. But this is not a new thing. And I'd just like to read you a little article that I find fascinating, about how people have you know, ruined food for centuries. The book had a menacing skull and crossbones on the cover and a stark biblical quotation: "There is death in the pot." It was published in London in 1820 by a German analytical chemist named Frederick Acum, who had lived and worked in England for almost 30 years. His sensational expose was entitled "A Treatise on Adulterations of Food and Culinary Poisons." It revealed the criminal greed of Britain's food and drink manufacturers and retailers, many of whom enhanced their profits by mixing products with other cheaper and sometimes dangerous substances. Bitter almonds containing prussic acid were used to give a nutty taste to many humble table wines. Bakers added alum, a potentially dangerous mixture of aluminium and potassium salts, to bread to give it extra whiteness. We are still doing that. Maybe not those products, but what is it? Culinary bleach. Some tobacco dealers used nitrate of ammonia to give tobacco more pungency and aroma. Some dairy farmers put gum and sheep's brain in milk to thicken it and increased its whiteness with chalk. Tea was padded with sawdust and sweepings, and roasted peas were used to give up extra bulk to coffee. Brewers enhanced beer by the addition of lethal drugs, and brightly coloured boiled sweets, so popular with Victorian children, were tinted with highly poisonous lead and copper salts, as were raspberry and gooseberry jams. Many victims of the food fraudsters became violently ill with stomach cramps and pains, and some even died. In the Yorkshire mill town of Bradford, for instance, 15 people died after sucking lozenges coated with white arsenic. But the response to Acum's charge was a campaign to discredit him, and that is exactly what still goes on today. In April 1821, he faced a trumped-up charge of mutilating books in the library of the Royal Institution in London. Rather than endure trial and public disgrace, Acum fled back to Germany. With his departure, the food poisoning scare died down. So don't address the subject, discredit the man, and it'll all go away. Interesting. Yeah, these you know, people who produce our food have been killing us for centuries. Who knew it? I've said in the past that when I go and look around other plots, particularly the plots that are managed by ladies, they're always a lot more attractive than my rather utilitarian plot. So I've always aspired to have it looking a little more colourful. And I can't claim credit for anything here. The marigolds in the tubs, fair enough, I sowed those and planted them. But these nasturtiums and the calendulas down there, I did not, you know, I had no part of. I mean, actually, the calendulas are smothering a cabbage in there, but I'm not going to worry about it. I've got plenty of others. But yeah, really attractive. As is this whopper of a pumpkin. Yeah, I mean, it won't win any awards, but it's a really good size. Very happy with that. And just to prove I'm not fibbing, deep inside there are two rather attractive looking butternut mashed potato. I'm really excited to eventually taste those later in the year, find out if they really are just like mashed potato. Now the last thing I want to do is tempt fate, but I just thought I'd give a progress report on the celery. Never managed to grow celery on the plot. When I've grown it in the ground, the slugs have eaten it. I've tried it in various different methods and ways, but what I've done here, in this raised bed, I dug out down to about 5 or 6 inches deep, and then I laid some old compost bags in the bottom of this raised bed, and then I put the soil back on top, and I put it in a form of a bowl, so that it's essentially what it's doing is it's holding the rain and the moisture back and creating a sort of a bog. And of course celery is a bog plant, and so far, and I water them avidly, and so far they seem to be doing okay. Yeah, I'm pleased it's beginning to create stalks, thickening up a bit. I've just noticed this one here, it looks like that one's run to seed, I think, but I've only just noticed that as I switched the camera on. There's me giving an update on how good it is. Anyway, so far so good, and we shall see. Well, if you're wondering why I've changed, it's because my t-shirt got soaked putting the asparagus in. But it's stopped now. Looks like there's some sort of event going on in the field down there. There's all sorts of, there's burger and hot dog vans pulling up. So what I think this video needs is a little humour and something quite interesting. So, the most dangerous music to play while driving is Wagner's Ride of the Valkyrie. My personal favourite is the theme to James Bond. At the 1967 South African Grand Prix, the Mexican national anthem couldn't be found, so the organisers played the Mexican hat dance instead. The Czechoslovak national anthem was the Czech national anthem played between two halves of the Slovak national anthem. I hope you understand that, because I don't. Chinese citizens hearing their national anthem are advised to stand still but be full of energy. And talking of energy, the sun generates more energy in 1 second than has been used during the whole of human history. Who sits down to work this stuff out? The centre of the sun is 40,000 times hotter than boiling water. The strike of a mantis shrimp is so quick it makes the surrounding water boil. And mantis shrimp can see a type of light that no other animals can, and they use it to send others secret messages. Again, how do we know this stuff? Oh, it's an interesting one. Puffins' beaks glow in the dark. Rolls-Royce Phantoms have Teflon coated umbrellas installed in the doors. A new umbrella drone keeps you dry without you having to hold it. Yeah, because doing that's really onerous, isn't it? Well, that's the ground cleared of onions, weeded, raked. The weeds are there. The onions, I think, can dry there for a while. And these are the ones that bolted, so we need to use those ASAP. Well, it didn't take long, and there were no levels or set squares used, but that should do the job. Well, that's taken a couple of hours, but hopefully you can see by adding those extra pieces of pallet I've filled in some of the gaps, and that's now virtually a solid wooden fence. I shouldn't get any of those weeds through. So very happy with what I've done. I just need to take my time and collect more pallets. But so far, so good. Well, they're the onions that have got to be used first because they bolted. And a lovely little harvest. And those onions are fine, and I'm hoping to store them so they're there to dry out. Oh, I'm done in. Well, I've had a full day up here. Managed to do all the jobs I wanted to do. Really pleased with the asparagus bed. A tidy little harvest to take home. So a good day in all. Hope you found something of interest in that. And I won't be here next week because we've got a weekend with the family. So I shall see you in a fortnight. Look after yourselves, take care, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.